Welcome to Deal Talk. I'm Jeffrey Veit. As usual, we're going to talk about avoiding dealer tricks and buying smart so that you save big when you purchase a car, truck, motorcycle, boat, motorhome, etc. We talk about it every episode. I hope every listener had a great holiday celebration. It seems like the world slows or stops a while when the holidays land. Of course, it doesn't. It's been just as miserable as ever. But in the electric vehicle corner, sales continue to drop because the country and the world are beginning to realize the whole story is not accurate. And the electric vehicle is a very bad choice for the economy. And, lots more scientists are coming out with it. The fear of, being pursued for telling the truth is kind of getting away on that because so many people have found out it's just a bunch of baloney. If you're wealthy and have other vehicles, or you drive very little and are wealthy, then knock yourself out and get one. Otherwise, it's sort of a financial plague that can hurt more than just your wallet, that's for sure. An example would be the McLaren Artura. Owners, a very expensive automobile. Owners are told to stop driving their hybrid Artura because of fire problem. Yep. That's a $238,000 vehicle. That the money and all the money that it costs doesn't change the fact that they will catch fire. And it's just a hybrid. I mean, it's got a big battery for a hybrid, but it's still a hybrid. It's not totally electric, and it still has a problem with fire. Those batteries are a problem no matter what you're using them in. And that's what we're finding out, and that's what people are finding out about those vehicles. Around the world, they're laying off workers right and left for the sales of electric vehicles. It's tanking, and they can't afford to build anymore. They're just not selling. South Carolina's biggest employer is the auto industry, and many of those 75,000 workers in South Carolina are going to be sitting at home pretty soon. A lot of them already are, because they're just not selling. People aren't going to make a stupid mistake like that. They're just getting the word out, and people are beginning to realize that it's a bunch of baloney. The facts are coming out more and more. Fake news is worried about being complicit in this too, so they're starting to come out with the truth a little bit more. You'll see it more often. Reports show the electrics have 80% more problems than conventional vehicles. 80%. That's double. And obtaining minerals needed to produce batteries are problematic. And we have to go outside the country to get those minerals in most cases. The Washington Post called them blood batteries because of the child labor being used to mine them for the minerals around the world. That's not to mention it's not doing anything about climate change. It's crazy how people believe it, but it's not. It's got nothing to do. It's not going to change climate change. Climate change that's happening is purely about the planet doing it to itself. It's not about mankind. You couldn't measure the difference if we all started driving electric vehicles. It wouldn't make any difference. Biden's policies help the Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers market and their battery market, because most of the minerals used to build the batteries are in China. And they've got less expensive electric vehicles, which they want to start selling around the world. They're not selling them in the U.S., but around the world they are. And it's got nothing to do with anything other than maybe the $5 million given to Joe Biden's son for doing nothing. That might have something to do with a little payback, but it's just how it's working out for them. So there's no good news. I wish I could say there was more news for the electric vehicle so I could talk about other things in the automobile business, but there hasn't been any news in the general automobile business. The market's coming back a little bit, and they're starting to build a few more of the gas vehicles, but you got to remember they changed a lot of tooling and things in the factories to build these electrics, so it's not that easy to just ramp up the gas vehicle production. And we've been kind of suckers to this. We keep getting surprised by the far left. And by the time we realize what happened, it takes a lot to back up from it. And it's going to take some while to get off from the electric vehicle push. They're not going to build anymore, but they're going to be sitting around. They got to do something with them, right? One last piece of news about electric vehicles. GridServe, which is a large electric vehicle charging network in the U.S., has just raised its price for using its system for charging your vehicle. That's right. Already the price is going up on charging. Is that? I'm surprised. Soon the 15 or 20,000 extra you pay for an electric vehicle will be matched by the extra you pay to charge it. It's gotten to the point where it's just so price, costly to do it. It just doesn't make any sense for anybody to want to do that. It's just not intelligent choice. The facts against EVs have reached the same ridiculous level or higher than inflation, which we're dealing with, illegal immigration, which we're dealing with. Drowns out other news about the automotive market. There's no positive thing. There's nothing positive I can tell you about electric vehicles. Somebody will see me and they'll say, well, I have one and I'm happy with it. They're not happy with it. You can tell by the way they talk about it. I'm happy with it. Because they might live down, they might drive 3 miles a day. That would probably work for that person, right? But they still pay $20,000 more for it. And they still have to, if they don't own their home, they have to pull a cable outdoors in their rental unit to charge it up. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. It's nothing good about it, not to mention all the fire news. If you want to know about the fire news to see if I'm correct, and I am, but if you want to check me to make sure, fact check me, you can go to google.com and go to Google Alert and then put an alert to notify you whenever there's a electric vehicle fire. And you'll find out there's 12 or 15 emails every single day. And when these things burn, they don't just burn, catch on fire, and they put them out. Nope, doesn't work like that. They don't necessarily need much oxygen to burn, so a little bit more difficult. Anyway, if you like this podcast, please take a couple of minutes and do a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Play. I'd appreciate it. Whatever podcast source you use, please do that. If you've already done a review, I thank you very much for it. It's really important. Be sure to tell your friends and family about the podcast. They'll save some money and grief, and you'll be a hero. There's, 380 episodes about all different parts of the automobile business, and some episodes reviewing different parts. In fact, we're going to do a review today. Those of you who'd like some written material to carry with you when you're out shopping, get a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon, Kindle, or Barnes & Noble Nook. Right? It'll give you the basics for quick reference when you're in the buying process and can't turn on your podcast and listen to the podcast. You just look at your booklet. It's called The Informed Buyer. And it costs you $3. That's right. No, I didn't say $30. I didn't say $13. I said $3. $3 you can invest. That's less than a venti of coffee from Starbucks. That's less than a Big Mac, one Big Mac. And you could save yourself, maybe it might save you from forgetting something that cost you $500, $600, $700 or $1,000. $3, right? On Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, you can't go wrong. Let's review luxury vehicle buying this week. Resale issues and any other differences from a standard purchase, both new and used. Let's talk about that. What makes a vehicle a luxury vehicle? That'd be the first question. How do you know when you're talking about a luxury vehicle? What are the borders between luxury vehicles and the other segments of the automotive market? You could say anything beyond the buyer's basic needs. Besides, whatever your basic needs are, anything you get over that is a luxury vehicle. But in general terms, I think most of us would start with price and also consider who the buyer is and what they want. Luxury vehicles make a lot of differences. They also play on people's egos, right? For now, let's use price range in each market segment as the divider. By that, I mean a tractor trailer is a high price, but a luxury version would be many thousands more than a luxury car, a luxury standard pickup, right? I draw a line for the average sedans at about $45,000 before in the past episode, which is over a year ago, a year and a half ago. Now it's about $58,000. Any family use vehicle over $58,000 is a luxury vehicle. On a truck, I think a little more, maybe $68,000, but maybe not. But I think, yes, I think a truck would be more expensive. Trucks would be very expensive and not considered luxury because of their use, right? On a motorhome, over $300,000. Or a motorcycle, over $25,000. A boat, over $175,000. That would be the price ranges, right? The price levels change over time. The last time I did this, like I said, it was 45 or 48,000. It climbs in quite a bit. It's a crazy market. There's no question about it. And right now, who's to say, right? Anything over 55,000 for sure is luxury. I think you could safely say that. Luxury vehicles have appeal for a number of reasons. One being status or ego. That'd be another reason that people buy a luxury vehicle, right? Now, electrics, those price ranges are not for electrics. You'd have to add 20, 30,000 to an electric to have it be a luxury vehicle. People think they're a luxury vehicle just because of the price, but they're not. They're actually, if you compare models with the same options, electric versus gas, for the same amount of equipment, it's $20,000 difference. And you really don't get the same amount of equipment because you take, for instance, a car like a Toyota Camry that's fully electric. A lot of the room inside is gone. The battery's the whole bottom of the car. What you gain in an electric purchase, that's not based on personal values can be big. One big difference is safety. Luxury vehicles are safer on the average compared to a mid-range vehicle and much safer than basic vehicles. They often have safety-related add-ons that are not even available on regular vehicles. So that's one of the big gains to buying a luxury vehicle. The latest technology always comes with high-line vehicles. You see things on a Lexus or a Mercedes-Benz you won't see on regular vehicles yet because they use it as a ploy. It's a way to separate things, and it's a ploy to get people to buy that more expensive vehicle. That's one way to justify their price, and it also makes them more competitive against their competition. If a Mercedes has something that a Lexus doesn't, that's a plus, right? Because they're luxury vehicles, both of them. In many cases, there are things on a luxury vehicle that never get any attention. It's become an industry standard. For years, I've talked about this on other episodes, Mercedes for years back, now let's talk 25 years ago, they had many, many things that other companies could not offer. From plastic-coated gas lines to special collapsible steering wheels and pedals and brake pedals and things that collapsed a special way to go up inside the dash. In fact, Mercedes-Benz invented safety cell design, which everybody uses, crumple zones on their cars now. That was invented by Mercedes-Benz. And they gave the technology away for free. That, tells you something about the company. I like them. There's a lot of good companies out there. A study a few years ago found that luxury vehicles have safety items not found on less expensive vehicles. And in fact, in the study, they found that 71% of all vehicles sold with the most high-tech features were in fact luxury models. Yeah, so just because you bought a more expensive truck doesn't mean you got everything that was on that luxury model car. According to the National Institute of Highway Safety, 50% of the highest-rated safety models are luxury vehicles, the ones that are highest rated. Now, there's no reason for that to be the case for crumple zones. It's not like it's a technology that stops you in a crash. But what happens with a luxury vehicle a lot of times is they put extra support in the front end. Mercedes-Benz, for one, does that, and they did that for years. The left front of the car, in America, the left front had more support than the rest of the car frame, because that's where you usually are hit, in the left front. According to the National Institute of Highway Safety, there's a lot of issues on luxury vehicles that make them safer that aren't talked about. In fact, it's so evident, in my opinion, and based on my experience, a 5-year-old luxury vehicle, true luxury vehicle, a 5-year-old Mercedes-Benz 300E or newer, or a 5-year-old Lexus top of the line, is safer than a brand new standard vehicle. Yep, they're still safer even though they're older because they were so advanced when they came out. Luxury vehicles generally have better resale value than most other vehicles too. Poor resale with a luxury vehicle would be odd and would take a major reason for that to happen. And it's happened to a few companies in the past we've talked about before, like Audi and some other ones. They'll get a bad rap and then the price will go down. But generally speaking, the resale value percentage on a luxury vehicle is going to be more than on a standard vehicle. And that's one of the reasons why, although you might be looking at two vehicles and there'd be $20,000 difference in price between them, if you were leasing them, there might only be $50 a month. Because the residual value, which is the ending value at the end of the lease, The percentage is higher on luxury vehicles, so you're paying off less, a lower percentage of a more expensive vehicle. So it comes out to being a lot closer to price when you lease now. I'm talking about when you lease than you might think. Luxury vehicles generally have better resale value in almost every line. Brand does play a role, and resale value can be a $5,000 to $10,000 difference. Comfort's a big win in luxury. So the better luxury vehicles still have better resale than the not as good luxury vehicles, but both would have better resale value than the standard vehicle. Comfort's a big win in luxury, right? They look better inside and have the latest comfort seating. They have all that fancy, rich caliente leather. I know that with Mercedes-Benz, they used to use, it wasn't really leather. They had their own material that they had invented. And the seats were firmer. And people would come in and they'd sit on the Mercedes-Benz when I worked for them, and they'd say, well, this is a stiff seat. Well, they didn't realize the benefit till they drove 100 miles. And that's really when it pays off. Comfort is a big factor, and that's what you get. The manufacturers spend more time on ergonomic. That's how you fit in the vehicle. They spend time on it, and so that's what you get with another thing you get with a luxury vehicle. Now, you're paying more, and you say, yeah, you get more, but you're paying more. Well, not necessarily. That's the point I'm trying to make. Sometimes luxury vehicle class, you get more than what the difference in price is. So in other words, if you're paying 20% more, you might get 50% more in terms of benefits. If new high technology is available, it'll be on the luxury vehicle for sure. Anything that's available is going to be on the luxury line. The price justifies it, and the competitive nature of life requires it. If Lexus is going to try to compete against Mercedes-Benz and Acura, those three, and then you've got other models which aren't quite luxury, but they try to approach the market as though they're luxury, like Audi, which is really kind of caught between standard vehicles and luxury vehicles, in my opinion. Another nice feature of luxury is that many times the first 3 or 4 years of maintenance is included. That's common on many luxury vehicles. So if you go out and lease one for 36 months, guess what? You don't even pay for an oil change. You don't pay for anything. A monthly payment. Now, the standard vehicle might be $50, $75 a month less, but you also got to do the service on it, and you also don't have all that luxury wrapped around you and the family. Now, it only applies if you can afford the extra $75 a month. But what I'm trying to point out is that it can be well worth it if you go and find out. If it's not included, it can cost more for a luxury model to get things done. I know the rate per hour at a Mercedes store is probably going to be more than a rate per hour at a Chevy store, but because they require a lot more education and they're a lot more, demanding on who they hire and stuff, because they're luxury vehicles. They worry more about customer satisfaction because that's word gets around quicker at that level. Power is another advantage of luxury vehicle. They're generally more powerful. And in fact, it wasn't uncommon in the past to have luxury models with more performance than the sleeker muscle cars. Back in the days of the muscle cars, you had some Mercedes models, 450 series for one, that could way out faster than any muscle car they built. Those things would do, close to 200 miles an hour back in the 60s. Because that's just how it was, the market was, People didn't drive at those speeds, but they were equipped to do that. It's like the Hayabusa, Suzuki Hayabusa. When they first introduced that in 1998, I think it was, or 99, out of the crate it would do 202 miles an hour. Brand new, just without customizing it at all. Now, no, people didn't drive at that speed. Probably a few guys did and died, but the same with the Mercedes. They were available. The power was there if you needed it. Quality of the build is far more consistent on an electric vehicle because the price and the competition that in turn adds to the resale value, and that adds to the perceived value. So the lines and the things line up better, and more time is taken putting them together. I don't know how it works today, but Mercedes-Benz used to build cars in teams. Each team would build a car, the whole car. It wasn't like an assembly line process like in America at one time. Now, I don't know if that's the case now, but it certainly was the case years ago. Not that long ago, I was still in the business. That means they can surprisingly be less expensive than you might think in the long run. You'd be surprised. With the resale value and all the things you get, you can look at it and say, wow, I got all this stuff for $50 a month or $75 a month on a lease. I'd be crazy not to do it, right? That's one of the biggest advantages. More consistent resale value is a huge factor, right? In many cases, the excellent resale values give leasing companies the confidence to increase the residual values, which in turn lowers the payment. So where they normally look at, let's say if you were looking at a Honda, the resale value at the end of 3 years might be 60%. Well, because it's inaccurate and it's a luxury vehicle, they might do 63%. That means you're paying off a smaller percentage of the beginning price. It's still a higher price, but you're paying off less of the higher price, so it becomes closer. It brings those two prices closer together because of that. I mean, if they know, this leasing company, they'll sell the vehicle to the end. It improves the leasing numbers, and sometimes that difference can be dramatic. Commonly, a lease payment on a luxury vehicle is much more attractive than a purchase, both in dollars and commitment term. You might think the profit requested by the dealer would be higher for a luxury unit, but not necessarily. A competitive market and the need for volume, they still need volume, right? Those all have a factor. A competitive market and the need for that volume make the great deal in the price. They're just as motivated to sell as a standard vehicle. And it's another reason why the due diligence is still important. Buying or leasing a luxury vehicle requires just as much work on the purchase. Yep, doesn't make any difference if you want to get the same kind of deal. You might think the smoother approach by the dealer lends to an easier negotiation process, but it doesn't. None of that really changes. They still opaque your payments. They'll try to underpay for your trade. The advertising might appear to be more in line, which I think is probably true, especially with factory advertising. Prices don't mean much unless they're out the door anyway. It doesn't matter what they say in an ad. I mean, you'll never see, most luxury vehicles will never advertise rebates and things like that because that makes it look like distressed merchandise, and they don't want to look that way, no matter what. Interest rates and terms have a much bigger effect on a luxury vehicle. Interest rate and lease factor are paramount. 1% higher interest rate on a $50,000 finance could mean as much as $3,000 on a 60-month loan or $1,500 on a 36-month lease. With the current high rates, it's easy to overpay by 1 or 2% because there's a much larger interest rate to begin with. Getting back to resale value, there are many things that affect a luxury item more than a standard vehicle, and so that means plus or minus to the resale value. Color, for one. I mean, it's so important to have picked the right options. People on a luxury vehicle are a lot pickier. They're buying a luxury vehicle in a lot of cases because it's partly an ego purchase, or because they can afford to and they want every option they can get because they think it might make a difference and could make a difference in safety, all those things. But there's other things that affect resale value too. Color, for one. Trade value or resale appeal can be hurt by a bad color. That's no big deal on a standard four-door sedan Toyota Camry, but when you're talking about a new Mercedes-Benz 300E, if they don't like the color, they're not buying it. I don't care what it is. And they're right for it because, in most cases, a red or blue won't be worth as much as the white or black or silver at the end of resale value. Yeah, it could be a significant difference too. It's common that two identical vehicles, other than color, could be over $1,000 difference at an auto auction. Yep, you go to the auction to buy cars and you watch the guys that buy them for overseas or for the Mideast used. When a red car, four-door sedan comes through, they won't even bid on it, which affects the resale value because the dealer, whoever has it, can't sell it for as much or do as much with it because it isn't available. Just like color, the options matter too. Too many options will never hurt. So you can't worry about buying a luxury vehicle and saying, I shouldn't get this on it, that might hurt it. No. The more that's on it, the better. And in my case, if I was out buying a luxury vehicle and I want to buy a new Mercedes or I was going to buy a Lexus, I would buy it with everything I could get on it because you can always sell one when it has more than the person wants. But if it doesn't have what they want, something's missing, a lot of times they'll just pass and go to another one. That can hurt a lot. Bells and whistles add resale value, always. Luxury buyers pay more to get what they want. Those facts are why leasing makes so much sense on a luxury vehicle. If a luxury vehicle has had paint work, that really kills the resale value because of the fact that people are so picky. And it's so important that the chances of leasing, when I was years ago working for Mercedes-Benz, this would be a long time ago. That's all I'll say. Maybe 30 years ago. I'd say 75% of all the vehicles delivered by Mercedes-Benz were leased in America. I mean, 3 out of 4. And I think it would still be that way. The only thing that's hurt leasing a little bit is the government trying to steal on the resale value, which has been a problem I've talked about on many episodes, and I'm trying to do something about it. But lately I haven't even been able to get the Attorney General to answer my emails or to call me back, or, they haven't done much on it because they haven't been forced to, and it's just, they're just not concerned with the public like they should be. I mean, if you own the vehicle and something happens on it, you're going to take the hit. I'll give you an example. Somebody runs into you. Their insurance company pays to have your vehicle fixed. You got a brand new Lexus, and it's been hit, and maybe had $5,000-$6,000 worth of paint work. It doesn't take long to get the numbers up there on a luxury vehicle. And your Car-fax shows the damage. It's going to affect the resale value whether you like it or not. Doesn't make any difference. There's nothing you can do about it. But if you had leased it and had it fixed properly by a proper garage, wouldn't cost you a nickel. You just hand them the keys and leave when you're done leasing it. That's the beauty. One of the beauties of leasing is no threat, no danger of resale or losing your shirt on it at the end. And you could still maybe sell it for a profit, on your own. I mean, you could still do that back when you could do it. Now, they changed that 2 years ago in most leasing companies. I'm not sure if Mercedes follows that program or not. You'd have to, I don't know the answer to that one. But I know that Lexus does and Acura does, and you can't trade or sell. You can buy the vehicle at the end of the lease, or you can trade it or sell it with any Honda or Acura dealer. So you could shop between dealers of Hondas, but you couldn't shop a competitive make, which hurts the public dramatically. It's a way that car dealers have been stealing from the public for the last 2.5, 3 years, and our Attorney General is not doing anything about it. Yep, I've tried, and they keep telling me we're working on it, and now it's just a bag of wind. All the other rules on leasing apply, whether it's luxury or not, So if you buy it at the end, you got to pay sales tax on it. But if you if you trade it in, you wouldn't. But you can, if you trade at one Mercedes, if you lease it, let's say a Mercedes dealer in one town, you can trade that vehicle at the end of the lease with any Mercedes dealer, and you can get them to be pretty competitive with each other. And that's an advantage to you because it's their own product, so no one's going to offer you more for it generally, especially if it hasn't had a bad Car-fax. Bad Car-fax is going to hurt it even on a trade-in. Yep, no question about it. What about CPO vehicles and those leases? It's no surprise that I'm not a fan of CPO vehicles, most because of the certification costs. There are other reasons as well. Listen to an episode about CPO and you'll figure out why. But really, on a luxury vehicle, leasing it used isn't going to be enough difference. The dealer may be pressing to lease some used Mercedes he has, and he'll hold off on you. But if you shop the price, you'll find out that a new one will cost you not that much more than the used one, and the used one is used. That's another point. You could say, well, it's like new. Yeah, it's like new is not new. I would stay away from CPO in my opinion, but I wouldn't even buy a CPO. No, if I wanted to buy a used Mercedes, I'd go to a Lexus or a Acura dealer. I'd look for one there. Yeah, I wouldn't. And that way, it wouldn't be certified, so you wouldn't have to pay certification expense. So that would be what I would do. Just make sure to have a good Car-fax and the right kind of miles, and that's how I would do it. And I'm sure it would cost you thousands less than buying from its own dealer. Like if you were buying a Lexus used, and you went to a Lexus dealer for one in low miles and clean Car-fax, they're going to have it certified. You're going to have to pay a few thousand more. Whereas if you found that same vehicle at a Mercedes dealer They can't certify an Acura. They can only certify a Mercedes. So that vehicle would be probably $3,000 or $4,000 less than it was at the Lexus dealer. So that's the go to look at the competition to find the used one that you want to buy. Late model luxury vehicles can represent an excellent value in that case, right? But when it comes to leasing, current model year new is what you should go with. So if they got 2023s and 2024s, always go with a newer model, because the newer model, the 2024, will have a higher residual value, and and even though if it has a bigger sticker price or less discount, with a higher residual value, the difference in payment's not going to be enough to justify going with last year's model. And at the end of the lease, you have a lot less chance of making any money on it if it's the older model. You got to think about that resale at the end too, because there's money to be made there. People walk away from it all the time, but it's there. I'm still working on the FTC to get around that, like I said, so who knows what'll happen, right? Dealing is about the same, though. Even the phony ads are just as phony if by the dealer. They're not by the manufacturer. You won't ever see anything by the manufacturer, but the numbers are bigger. But that works especially well on luxury vehicles. Number 1, leasing. High resale does it. 2, safer vehicle for the same money. For almost the same money, you're getting a safer vehicle than a standard, an electric vehicle. They have the latest technology. They're probably more dependable, I would have to say. A big one, they are safer. As they get newer and they come out with all the newest safety things that come out with, and inventions, I guess you'd call them, or changes that make it safer, would be on the brand new one. That won't be on the one that's the standard vehicle, or maybe even 1 year could even make a difference. And customer satisfaction is a bigger, more important demand by the manufacturer. They don't monkey around with that. Believe me, you will get taken care of better on a luxury vehicle than any vehicle, just because of the perceived value of that, need for that. If you're in the market for a vehicle, check out the comparable luxury 3-month lease. If you're looking at a Toyota, check out the Lexus. If you're looking at a Honda, check out the Acura. If you're looking at Mercedes-Benz, maybe go look at Audi or BMW. BMW is another one that's kind of caught between luxury and, unless you get the big one, the 750 dude, you're not getting the same car as a Mercedes-Benz. Most of the technology that BMW has, and I don't want to make it sound like they're idiots, they're not, but most of it, every 2 years, Mercedes sells. So that's kind of, you're always behind the boat a little bit with a BMW. You've just got that high performance reputation, which is, I don't know. I don't think they're as good, but whatever compares to a model you're looking at, that's what to go look at. Just, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to lease it, but go find out, and you'll be surprised. I'm telling you, you'll be surprised. You find out that the difference between a Toyota and a Lexus, same model now, same size body and stuff, you have to look at them, if they're the same size, will be less than you think. Make sure all your quotes are sign and drive, so you compare equally among the models. You decide to put money down on a lease, you can do that later, but for the shopping portion of it, get sign and drive, and then look at the monthly payment on the new Acura and the new Honda, and even if it's $100 a month less, but you have to go 2 years longer. I don't know. That's why I say 36 months, because you tell me what happens after 36 months with any new car. With any new car, tires and brakes and shocks and all that stuff happens, and it doesn't matter what's electric or gas. All that stuff is the same on these models. The only difference is the engine and what's a tune-up versus a battery. Battery costs you $15,000 and a tune-up's $300. It'll take me long to figure that out, but what about the due diligence for a luxury vehicle? Strangely enough, it's not much different. The same stuff that I've talked about and covered on episodes about due diligence, it's the same. Dealers will play the same tricks they do for any other model of motor vehicle. The important is different. An APR 1% more on a $50,000 item, significant. An extra 5% off on a $50,000 car is, $2,500 to get the same kind of percentages. Resale differences are huge. So, give you an example. You buy the luxury vehicle. Let's say the luxury vehicle was $75,000, and the standard family vehicle was $45,000. That's $30,000. But if you take in consideration that the luxury vehicle is going to be worth $10,000 more at the end of its time, whether you lease it or buy it, now there's only $25,000 difference. And if you lease it with the increased residual, now there's only $10,000 difference. And now you're talking about a monthly payment difference of, I don't know, depends on the model, but $75 a month to drive a luxury vehicle. I don't know, with no maintenance. That's what I've always done, but I don't buy luxury. I do the same stuff on a Highline standard vehicle. I don't go I guess you could call it a luxury vehicle, but I don't go all the way up because I'm not caught up in that. But it's significant. It's worth looking into. And they have promotions that you're not aware of. They don't ad on TV, come in and we'll give you a big discount and all this stuff. But like Mercedes-Benz might be for a particular 2-month period of slow period. Like right now in the Northeast, for instance, I'll guarantee you there's a higher residual value on a new lease than there will be in a month or two. And so the lease is going to be maybe $50, $75 a month less right now for the same vehicle because of that marketing thing. And they're not going to advertise it because they don't want anybody to think that their cars aren't selling. It's just a bad time of year, right? An extra 5% off is a big chunk. So all these things come into play. What you lose by doing the right shopping and the right negotiating and the right due diligence is a bigger percentage. Because to give you an example, if you're going to get 10% off on a standard vehicle that's $30,000, that's $3,000. But on a $60,000 car, that's $6,000. So you got paid $3,000 more for your due diligence, and it's just as easy. In fact, it's probably a little easier because of the fact that the dealers are trying to make it sound like they're nicer and friendlier and you're your best friend. They're going to be a little bit more flexible about giving out numbers. You may have more money is why you're looking at luxury, but I'm sure you're not interested in throwing the money out the window. So doing that extra work and the right negotiation can make a heck of a big difference. And why would you not want to do that if you can? I mean, if you're so filthy rich it doesn't make any difference, then fine, send somebody out to just go walk in and say, I'll take that one. You don't have to talk about it at all. But generally speaking, everyone wants to save some money if they can, right? One of the big issues in the luxury market is the luxury dealers will be more polite and respectful and slower in their approach. Most associate luxury with mannerisms and relentless care for the customer. But just like the facade they use in a one-price store, don't let that fool you for 1 second, because they'll trim you just like anybody else will. The tricks like payment packing will be the same, but they're probably less careful because they don't get questioned as often. People trust them automatically just because it's a Highline car. It's like a one-price store. Well, you're selling your cars at one price, but you must be the most honest guys in the world. And actually, you can end up paying a larger profit going to that store than one you deal at because of the trust. They take advantage of it. Most. I can't say everybody does, but I'd be willing to bet that it's a very high percentage that do. Maybe 85 or 90% do. Just because it is a luxury dealer doesn't mean the dealer can be trusted any more than any other make. Trust is often given but not earned. Like Ronald Reagan said, he said it the best, trust but verify. Your trade may be an uphill battle as well. If you're not trading a luxury vehicle in, they may not be as astute about the value of what your vehicle is, because they don't deal with cars in that range. It's very important you shop used vehicle dealers before you go to deal. I don't care if you have a luxury vehicle or a regular vehicle. And if you're going to trade in a luxury vehicle that's 4 or 5 years old or whatever, or 3 years old, make sure it looks like a luxury vehicle. Don't drive it in there like you've been sleeping in it for a month. Make sure it looks like a luxury vehicle when you trade it in. And because those are all things, they're no different than any other dealer when it comes to that. They'll sound nice, and they might walk around with a tie on instead of a polo shirt, and they might offer you tea or coffee. Big deal. This is all part of the game. It's like going to a art showing, and they hand you a glass of wine, from an $8 bottle of wine. They give you a glass and expect you to spend $500, $1,000, $2,000, and just for standard art program, and maybe some you might pay $30,000 or $40,000 for. They're usually a bit more picky, and if your trade has paintwork, Be sure you have an explanation when it comes up. If they say to you, well, your car's been painted, so it must have been wrecked, or we're worried about it's been painted, be sure you have an explanation. And if you have a copy of the repair order from when it was fixed, that would be good too. So those are all important parts of your due diligence that you have to do. And you've got to shop your vehicle. If you're so caught up in don't want to take the effort to shop your vehicle, at least do it by phone. Call them and describe your vehicle and tell them you want to sell it. Or you drive down there and want to get a price. They'll give you an idea what it's worth, and do that to 3 dealers. And you'll have a good idea of what your vehicle's worth, in case they don't, right? The last thing we should cover would be electric vehicles. I haven't talked about those much when it comes to luxury. Just because they're expensive doesn't mean they're luxury. All EVs are expensive, every one of them. But an EV luxury would have to be a car over $90,000. That would be considered luxury. Anything under that's not luxury, it's electric. And you might get excited thinking you're driving an electric vehicle, but I'll tell you what, you won't be. You'll be sorry you ever bought one, I guarantee. It may take you 6 months, but you'll wish you didn't. And when there's a fire, kiss your house goodbye if it's in your house. There's no way to stop it. They can't stop the fires. They're working on that. They're having fire companies going through all kinds of extra work just to put the fires out. They can't. They just can't. Why would a person spend $80,000 for a vehicle that is not convenient? Electric vehicles are anything but convenient, right? You have to charge them. You have to wait while this stuff is done. You can't plan any long trips. I just went up to my daughter's house for Christmas. I had a great Christmas. All my kids and grandkids and husbands and wives and everybody was there, all in one house for 4 days. It was incredible. It was wonderful. Best Christmas I've had in a long time. And, you don't want them to get into that hassle of worrying about, is it safe or it isn't? And it's not going to make any difference, right? They cost $80,000. They're not convenient. Is that when I drove up there, I drove up in 1 day. But it's 800 miles. And I would have had to stop and charge my vehicle 3 times. I would have had to take the trip in 2 days. So by the time I got there, it was time to leave. It wouldn't have been a Christmas. And you can't overcome that. But you could say, well, I could rent a gas vehicle. Well, what's the sense in having the electric if you're going to have to rent a gas vehicle to take a trip? Well, you could fly. Sure you could if you get a plane ticket. And if you wait till, you have to buy way ahead, and then you're going to spend, what, $400 or $500 just to fly up and then rent a vehicle. By the time you've done, you spent 3 times as much on your vacation. It's just not convenient. Why would you spend that kind of money for a vehicle that has no convenience to it or good to it at all? Not to mention the fact that they wear out sooner. They have no resale value. Even a luxury EV has no resale value. They just don't. Who wants to buy an iPhone that's 4 years old? Nobody I know, right? That's for sure. The reason they look at EVs is for climate change. And it doesn't help. Get the real skinny. Listen to the scientists, not guys that drive around talking about how it's bad and they've done their research. No. Find out what the most recent MIT physicist that won the Nobel Prize for physics this year, what he thought. See what he said. Now, there's a guy that knows all about that and said at his acceptance speech that he was surprised because climate change was nothing but bull. I'm not making that up. You can go and watch him on YouTube. Due diligence is about the same, but each part of it represents a larger number of dollars because any of the percentages I have talked about on this or other episodes is the same with the exception of resale value. On a luxury vehicle, a negative Car-fax can be a larger percentage of the lost value. A used luxury vehicle with issues drops the little further out of the luxury market, doesn't it? So if you take a used luxury vehicle and it's got some problems or a bad Car-fax, it's no longer a luxury vehicle in the market because of that Car-fax. It's dropped out and now it's down to a regular one. So those things all play a part in the process. So you have to take the steps. And buying a luxury vehicle is something that's not simple, and you can't assume because it's luxury, these dealers aren't doing the things they feel they need to do in order to sell. And that's what it boils down to. They have to deal against their competition, and they're convinced they have to do that with the games they play. And that's not, and it's going to happen to you just as much as anybody else. No question about it. Just as much, maybe more, because you're more trusting and you let your guard down and they can tell. So buying a luxury vehicle, you got to be tough like anything else. If you want a deal, you want to get a good deal and you want to get the right vehicle, you got to be tough about it. Otherwise, you may end up disappointed. Well, that's the story on luxury vehicles here. And that's Deal Talk for this week. If you have a question or request or even a comment, please call or email me. Callers dial 407-801-4071. That's 407-801-4071. Or you could email me at dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com. That's dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Please don't forget to tell your friends and family about the podcast. You'll be helping them save money, possibly big money. In a lot of cases, it has been big money. And do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. It's $3. I'm not going to pitch into why that makes sense, but think about it. $3 to have the note in your pocket about this podcast. I don't know. Just seems like a smart move to me. However I can help you, contact me and you'll hear from me. And remember, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information, amount, months, rate, any required down payment to get to those terms. Not on just the first payment, quote, but every single time they quote you a monthly payment, you get those terms every single time. And every cash price you get should be all in. Don't let them tell you this much plus the fees or, out the door, it's $30,000 plus fees about or whatever, or somewhere around $28,000. No. You want every single cost required to buy the vehicle, the tax, the plates, the dealer fee, aftermarket options, anything that's required, all in the price that they give you, including the tax. That's how you want the price. They'll call it OTD. It means out the door.